What's going on, everyone? Peter Hunt-Spitek here from The Gamer. Last week, I asked you for your hottest gaming takes, and some of you all delivered. So we're gonna take a look at some of those right now. Do you think this leaf is gonna show up on the green screen, or is there gonna be like a hole in my body? I guess we'll never know. To actually give a hot take, Bethesda has some redeeming aspects. You know, I think Bethesda as a studio has had kind of an interesting evolution over the past few years. They were on top of the world with, Oblivion, then Fallout 3, then Skyrim. I feel like they really owned that Xbox 360, PS3 generation. But after sort of the train wrecks that were Fallout 76 and Starfield, I do think that they have received a fair amount of deserved criticism, especially also like right now after, what is that called? The Shattered Space DLC for Starfield. That said, I completely agree. I do think that there are a bunch of redeeming qualities about them. I do think that, like, you go back and you take a look at Skyrim, it's clear that there is some spark there, that there are some decisions being made that made that game so popular and the studio so popular in the first place. As far as their place in the industry and in games now, I think time is very much not on Bethesda's side when it comes to making games. I mean, when Starfield came out, it felt really dated. It would have blown my mind in like 2013. But, you know, after years and years of Bethesda games, all sort of feeling the same, and other studios being able to evolve their style and get better with each release, for Bethesda to kind of just show up with the same thing they've been doing since, what, 2009? When was Oblivion? I think 2009? It does make them feel dated, and I do think that there are those redeeming aspects about them. I think their character writing is good, usually. I think the worlds that they make are generally interesting. Like, the lore to their games is always great, but I think you look at something like Starfield, and I can totally see why people have been sort of upset with them. Redeeming qualities? Certainly, but the best in the industry? No, not anymore. At least that's how I feel. I seriously think FF was better turn-based. We talking about Fatal Frame? Now, obviously, we're talking about Final Fantasy, and I know where this is coming from. I think that's a perfectly fine thing to think. I know a lot of people really didn't resonate with sort of the in-between turn-based stuff of, Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and 13-3. That whole trilogy of games wasn't received particularly well. Final Fantasy 16's combat, while it's flashy and fun, I don't think it sustains itself for the entire length of that game. So I do agree to some extent that there have been some pretty big lows, but I thought the combat in Final Fantasy 15 was a lot of fun. I also think, like, you look at what they're doing, what Square is doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that combat is the, next evolution of the combat that was in Final Fantasy 13. It's the same teams working on those games, so it would make sense that it would evolve sort of with time and get better. Now, is that combat my favorite Final Fantasy combat? I think so. Like, it's really good. However, I prefer the turn-based stuff, but that's just because we've also had more of the turn-based stuff and had more time for Square to iterate on those titles. So that's a pretty easy one to agree with for me, just because there have been so many ups and downs with the Final Fantasy series over the past 10 years, 15 years. When did they stop doing turn-based? Final Fantasy X in 2002, I think was the last one. Yeah, bring back some turn-based Final Fantasy games. I don't think people would be mad about it. Assassin's Creed Shadows will not be as bad as people have written it off to be. While it may have some serious flaws, the overall product will follow the tenets and trends of the dozens of games before it. Also, dragon games are too rare. Scalebound, Drakengard, Eco Draconis is exactly what the industry needs right now. I think you're forgetting Scalar, everyone's favorite dragon game. But in all seriousness, yeah, I think that this one is absolutely true. I think there are a lot of bad actors who are out there saying that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be the worst thing in the world because of its cast. And, those people aren't to be listened to. They don't really know what they're talking about. In terms of the actual game, though, I've kind of fallen off the Assassin's Creed series just because they've gotten so filled with bloat and nothing. They feel like eating styrofoam. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was like 100 hours, and I don't remember anything from it. I remember my brother getting his hand cut off. Spoilers, but that's about it. Oh, I remember, is it Basim? He came back to current day. That's insane. But yeah, in terms of like the actual game part of it, yeah, it hasn't really been my thing. Same with like Odyssey and Origins. Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think, is going to follow the exact same trends that the recent Assassin's Creed games have been following. So if you like those games, I think that you're going to get a kick out of Assassin's Creed Shadows. But if you haven't liked those games, like I haven't really been a fan of the series since like Black Flag, I just don't know if you're going to get a whole lot out of it. It seems like Ubisoft is trying to appease sort of both sides of the Assassin's Creed fan base with the Shinobi is kind of more of that more stealth-focused, old-school Assassin's Creed style gameplay, and then Yasuke is more of that kick the door down, come fight me style. But the preview that I got to see at Summer Game Fest, and then all of the footage of the game that we've seen since, hasn't really sold me that it's going to be this new style for the Assassin's Creed series. Like, it's not going back to its roots. It's just going to be more of the same. At least that's what it seems like to me. So if that's your thing and you've enjoyed those recent Assassin's Creed entries, then I think you're going to have a really good time. But if not, then yeah, I don't think it's going to be really for you. All that said, even though it's not going to be for me, I do agree that it's not going to be as bad as everyone has been saying it is. I think it's just going to be another Assassin's Creed game, and hey, it's set in Japan. That seems like a cool time period. You've got Yasuke. He's an interesting character, like an interesting historical figure. I don't know. If I get a chance to play it, I might pick it up. Those games tend to be really, really heavily discounted, only like 6 months after they release, so who knows. Little Big Planet deserves to remain Sony's poster child. That seems like a likely take from Little Big Planet connoisseur. I'm gonna have to disagree here. Now, I know that Sam Hallahan from The Gamer had a very popular video talking about how he misses Little Big Planet, and I do completely understand that. But was Sackboy ever the poster child of Sony? I don't think so. I mean, maybe in the in the PS3 era, like he was one of those like big main tenants, but then you have like Cole from Infamous, you have Kratos from God of War 3, I think was on the PS3. You had Nathan Drake. Those characters are the ones, fucking Joel and Ellie. Those characters are the ones that I really associate with PlayStation, and Sackboy is definitely in there. He's like in, like when I picture that era of PlayStation, like he's in the crowd, but he's not the face that I'm like recognizing first. That's not to say those games aren't good and those games aren't fun. And I think Media Molecule did a really good job with those games, especially Little Big Planet 3. And I don't know, I thought Dreams was kind of a fun little experiment, but bringing him back as like the poster boy of PlayStation, I just don't think it's gonna happen, especially because Sony has Astrobot sort of positioned as the new big PlayStation mascot. You know, Astro's Playroom comes pre-installed on every PlayStation 5. Astrobot, I guess that's the name of the new game. Astrobot is just this big crossover game with all of the other, old school and new school Sony franchises. And I just don't know if there's like this huge space for, a bunch of different platformers for Sony. That said, I did get a kick out of Sackboy's Big Adventure. That was one of the launch titles on the PS5. I feel like it kind of went... It didn't get the flowers I think it deserved. It was on PS Plus like a year ago or so. I played it. I actually really liked it. I also just really liked that Mario 3D World style of game. And it was clearly sort of inspired by that. It's great. So if you haven't tried it, like, give that a shot. But it also doesn't mean that Sackboy is dead for PlayStation. Obviously, they're interested in making more games for him. So, like... yeah, I think there's a chance that he comes back. Now, Media Molecule, on the other hand, did they get closed? Let me look. Okay. Okay, so it says Wikipedia page. Media Molecule was reportedly near to being closed instead of London Studios. So who knows? Maybe they might make another Little Big Planet game, or maybe they're going to work on something else, maybe Dreams related or not. All right, this is a long one. Finally, I get an excuse to say this. Red Dead Redemption 2 is overrated. It's not bad by any means, but it's definitely not the be-all, end-all of video games. The combat is repetitive, movement is somewhat clunky, and it is my opinion that it suffers from a lack of post-story activities. The only parts of the game I believe are praiseworthy is the emotional, well-developed story, the music and atmosphere, and the mission design of a lot of the main story missions. I believe that these good aspects compensate for the drawbacks, and thus I believe the game is good, but it's definitely not the best game ever, which is again why I think it's overrated. So I don't know if this is a hot take. I'm gonna be entirely real with you. There were 3 other people who commented similar things, one person agreeing with you and then another person saying, RDR2 is mechanically not an amazing game and not as good as God of War 2018. RDR2 is a painfully slow simulator more focused on realistically opening drawers than it is being fun. So yeah, so as far as being a hot take, I don't think that this is one. I think there's always going to be a section of people who sort of say like, oh, you know, thing that's popular isn't very good. It's the same way I feel about the Horizon series, right? Like, it's super popular. I don't know why. I think it's really, really bad. These people aren't saying that Red Dead Redemption 2 is really bad. You know, they're saying that it's just overrated, which I think is fair. I think their criticisms are valid. I think you can feel any way about a game and have it be true. Your opinion's always right. I made a whole video about that. I will say I do love that this first comment does say like, you know, it does have an emotional, well-written story. The music, atmosphere is great. The mission design is really, really good. So I guess I don't really know what they're critiquing here. They say the combat is repetitive. Yeah, it's like a 60-hour game, sure. And the movement is somewhat clunky. But I do understand what they're trying to get at here. Red Dead Redemption is not really my thing. It's a little slow for me, though I like the Persona series, so what the fuck am I talking about? But I do think it's an interesting complaint to say that Red Dead Redemption 2 specifically has a really slow pace when compared to something like God of War 2018 or even Ragnarok. You know, they don't say Ragnarok here, but those games are also pretty slow. And you know, to critique like it's a drawer opening simulator, yeah, have you played any game in the past 10 years? Every single game now I feel like is about, you know, crouching really low and like slowly opening drawers to find like health drinks or ammo or whatever the fuck. I think it's that commitment to realism that I think is a big drawback for Red Dead and Rockstar, which is something that a lot of people really, really like, but then it's something that obviously turns a lot of people off. It's not my thing. I do think that it is a little long in the tooth, but I do understand why that's popular in an age where AAA games feel like they need to be, you know, these giant, huge movies. You know, you look at like what that game is trying to do. You know, it's not trying to be some arcade cowboy shooter game. It's trying to be like a Western film. You know, it is going for that. So yeah, you are going to have to lean down and open every single cabinet. So if you can't get on board with that, that's fine. I think it's okay to have taste and stick to your taste. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a very hot take to say popular thing, bad, actually. It's a fine take to have, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I feel the exact same way about Horizon, but I'm not out here saying that it's some big hot take. So I think that's gonna do it for us today. If you have any hot gaming takes, feel free to leave them below in the comments. You can also respond to any of the hot takes that I responded to in the comments as well. I wanna hear what you have to say. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. Check out the other content on the Gamer YouTube channel. I will catch you in the next one later.